Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Mike Armstrong podcast show. And this evening, time goes quick when you're busy. This evening, we're joined by James Burtt, who is an entrepreneur and podcaster, similar to myself. And he's based in London, so not a million miles away. How are you doing today, James? You okay?
I'm very well, thank you, my friend. Thank you for inviting me on. Thank you for also making the effort of wearing an epic Christmas jumper. I now feel slightly underdressed, but I didn't realise it was Christmas jumper Monday. Had I have known, I'd have made more of an effort. But it looks epic.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for that. I was actually at my first Christmas online party event of the week. I've got about seven.
How was that?
It was
how was it? I see so many people that are posting like, "Oh, it's gonna be sausage rolls and a Zoom call." Is it good? Is it bad? What's it like?
Well, in the grand scheme of Christmas parties gone by, probably not very good. But in the scheme of you're not allowed to go out and do anything anymore. Then any chance just to have an alcoholic beverage at lunchtime and something to eat, and have a bit of a laugh and a giggle. We actually played some Christmas quizzes and did some raffles and that sort of thing. So it was quite good. It was 1:30 till 3:00. It was my first one of 7 this week, so I've got a busy seven event week, to live up to. Now, if that was going out on a proper Christmas party, I don't think I'd be able to do 7 in a week.
No, I think you'd struggle, wouldn't you? I think you do. Yeah, I think when everyone's allowed to go out properly, I think you'd be struggling to recover from the first one. I think give it up for it. Everyone seems to be. Jesus.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, if whatever they called it V-Day the other day when the vaccine was launched. Yeah. I thought V-Day was like victory in Europe, wasn't it, from the war? Yeah, but whatever name they give to that day when basically virus is defeated and we're all allowed to just live our lives again, whatever that day is, there's going to be one hell of a hangover the following couple of days.
Well, I was thinking this because when it first kicked off, I remember thinking, "Oh, is it going to be like?" Because there's a lot of that sort of like wartime spirit, wasn't there? And there's this sort of like camaraderie, and I felt like as a country, as a nation, as a Great British Isles, as the world, we'd never been more together. And then obviously everything transpired in the Trump situation. You had everything with George Floyd over in the States, and it went from sort of we've never been more together to we've never been more apart. And I remember thinking, "Oh, are we going to have like a V-Day kind of celebration? Is it going to be like out in the streets, drinks, fireworks, all that kind of stuff?" But I think it's just like it will gradually make its way back to normality or whatever normal is going to be from then on. So I don't think you ever have that kind of like, right, it's done, everyone's been jabbed, crack on, good luck, enjoy the rest of your life.
Yeah, well, it all depends when that happens, because I got a feeling it's all going to peter out by the summer. And then, September's always a time when everyone gets back on it again after the summer holidays. And, it's a big, busy time for business, sort of September, October, November, December. That's when I think it's going to go a bit mad. That's sort of September, October, November, December time, especially from a business point of view. Everyone's going to be full on it because probably enough of the vaccine would have been spread by the summer, plus obviously the number rates will go down in the summer. So I think that's probably when I think the big time of people, especially in the UK and Europe, are maybe celebrating,
Oh, fingers crossed. I remember when it kicked off. At the time I was working in sort of like a partnership role for a very successful dude called James Sinclair. Got 450 staff. He's done 100 million quid in sales. Generally turns over between 10 and 15 million quid a year. But his predominant trade, he operates in the leisure space. So God knows what he's done this year. But I remember getting sent home from the office and we're like, oh my God, can you imagine if this actually goes on for 6 weeks? Can you imagine what that's going to do for businesses? And then, we're here 9 months later and still there's no end in sight. It's just mental. You just could not have made this up, could you? You could not have made this up.
You could make it up, but you'd be a Hollywood script writer. And in fact, I'm sure they did make it up a couple of times. The outbreak and things like that, is literally we've lived a Hollywood movie for the last year. And so the only way you would make it up is if you was trying to, make an unbelievable, unrealistic Hollywood blockbuster.
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly.
So, it's been a bit of a crazy time. But for me, I've actually had a great year. It's been one of the best, most productive years of my life. But that's because I've been in sales all my life. high pressurized sales all my life. And for the last 8 years, I've been self-employed, sort of pressurizing myself, if you like. And I respond really well to pressurized situations. And I suppose as soon as I seen COVID coming along, it was like, oh, this is, I'm a bit of a warrior, I'm a bit of a battler. And I want to turn up properly when I'm on the pitch, if you like, or when I'm in the battle. And the rest of the time I'm not in the battle, I don't feel, like I'm fully utilized, I suppose. And as soon as this lockdown situation happened for me, I was like, right, pull up the sleeves, time to get stuck in. This is a proper situation going on. There's people out there getting help, you know what I mean? There's all this sort of thing. So I started being productive, creating content. I started my podcast. I've done over 820 episodes. I just started producing and getting busy.
There was that famous Henry Ford quote, isn't there? Whether you think you can or you can't, either way, you're right. And I know a lot of people like to wheel that out as often as possible, and it's a Google quote and it's like a hashtag Monday motivation or whatever it may be. But it's so true. And your mentality towards it, you can't control the situation. In the majority of instances, the situation will be outside of your control. But the thing you can always control is your mentality towards it. And a few people might listen to this and go, well, that's a bit contrived. What happens if horrific stuff, businesses have gone under, blah, blah, blah. There's an amazing book by a guy called Viktor Frankl, and he was in a prisoner of war camp. And he's like, the only thing, the last freedom that they will take from me is my mindset and my mentality. Yeah. I might be here chained up, watching other people die. I mean, he was literally days away from death. He got sort of, he was literally one of the very lucky few who was still survived at the end when the Allied troops came in. And but he's like, I will not allow, I might be imprisoned here, but I won't allow my mind to be imprisoned here. And he was like a professor and stuff. But equally, having said that, I've been very lucky, to your point a minute ago about having a great year, as have I. I've started the business that I probably should have started a couple of years ago, frankly. It's got, we're off to the races already. It's great. But equally, I have got mates who are builders, roofers. A very good friend of ours owns an opticians, bricks and mortar stores. James, who I mentioned a minute ago, is a very good pal of mine in leisure and tourism businesses. I've got mates who've got, travel agents. So you can kind of put that glass half full spin on it when you can pivot and make everything go digital and you work for yourself or whatever. You've got a small number of, team around you. But I do feel for those bricks and mortar businesses where that pivot wasn't just as simple as, well, I know, I'll launch a bloody online course. Because that seems to be like, everyone did two things. They launched a podcast and they launched an online course. So that was kind of it. But for those bricks and mortar retail outlets, which I still don't think the end is in sight yet, I do feel for them massively.
Oh, definitely. And like you say, it all depends, in every situation that happens, whether it be localized, whether it be nationalized, whether it be, like Brexit and a region, a European continent, or whether it be a global situation like this, there are always winners and there are always losers. And that's just an unfortunate situation. And part of the reason why I've been so productive is because I was a loser in the global credit crunch. 2008. So I seen this coming early. I seen it coming, I knew, whereas a lot of people thought this was going to be over in a couple of weeks or whatever, I could see this being a long-term thing and a big recession and actually financial trouble, which is, it's the after effects of the recession, which haven't really kicked in yet because everything's been quantitatively eased by the Chancellor and all of that. It's only really once all of the armbands are taking off, we actually see, who's floating and who's sinking. And so that's still to come, yeah. And it's going to, the global credit crunch, the bankers were sorted after a year again and back on it. This society took about 10 years to recover. And this is going to take longer than that because this is a bigger problem. Unless some people come up with some creative ways of filling the problems or we keep borrowing more money, which I study economics and markets and that sort of thing. I never really understand when you borrow money, who you borrow it off and when you're going to pay it back, because it just seems to be, and the borrowing turns from billions to trillions and it just gets bigger. So, ultimately, if we can just keep borrowing our way out with the problem, then maybe it might not last 10, 15, 20 years. But I
only realised recently that we paid off the Second World War in the last 5 years. We were still paying that back. I mean, like I say, who are these people that you're borrowing the money from. Because ultimately, you know, like with quantitative easing or whatever, back in the day, obviously, you know, the quantitative easing was they'd literally print money, put it back into the system, give everyone a little bit, and then go, right, okay, you could, or, you know, give certain elements of society a bit. And then it got spread, and then it's obviously back in society. Nowadays, with, you know, currency being digital, it's literally sort of a press of a fictitious button. You know, the British government could go, okay, well, let's make, you know, the pound, let's put another 10 gazillion pounds into the economy, and we'll give everyone this sort of like fiscal little handout, but it's okay. You'll end up with a Greece situation where you can't, you know, when they had the drachma in 2004 or 2005, where the money's literally worth nothing outside of that environment. So you have to lock people down physically from a financial sense, because they have just quantitatively eased it too much. But I think you're right, Mike. You know, you're not going to really understand the full extent of it until the armbands come off. But again, it goes back to that mindset we had a minute ago of be a dog with a bone in the fight. You've got to be willing to do that. And in whatever situation, again, I've got wholehearted respect for those who've got bricks and mortar businesses. It's not that easy to pivot and iterate and whatever. But people are finding solutions to problems. In any challenge or with any hurdle, there is an upside, there is a downside. To have light, you have to have dark. To have day, you have to have night. There's always going to be winners and losers, as you mentioned a minute ago. You're always going to have a challenge. And conversely, there's always an opportunity hidden within that challenge if you decide to see it that way.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, you know, the people who, like, some people could pivot their business and move that to online. The people who couldn't pivot their business, then what they're going to do is open up a second business, or look for multiple streams of income, or, you know, do something on the side, or, you know, that's what people should have been doing. Again, there's a lot of people, for example, would have been put on furlough, and then they're like, oh, I can't do any work because I'm put on furlough. But the clever ones would have been looking at, how do I build an MLM, or how do I sell some stuff on eBay, or how do I do something which isn't restricted by my furlough restrictions, but actually allows me to get a second income or a third income. And I think society before this recession was always moving towards that multiple streams of income, because lots of entrepreneurs talk about that. And there are a lot more people now realizing that, you know, when's the next pandemic? When's the next global credit crunch? When's the next something that's going to knock you off course? Or if you've got multiple things, or, you know, then if something disappears, you're not reliant on just that one thing. You've got, you know, your risk is spread a bit, right? You know?
I've got a mate of mine who's I started following, or he started following me on Insta about 3 or 4 years ago. We just sort of had a bit of back and forth, and we sort of watched each other's journey, etc. And he did exactly that. He got furloughed, and when he got furloughed, he did an online training course. It was like $500. You know, fairly sort of standardish price. Wasn't a huge outlay, but equally, you know, at a time when everyone's like, oh, squeaky bum time, what's happening next? He like invested in himself and literally just spent day after day after day going through this training course. And he's not going back. He's resigned this month, so he doesn't have to go back in January, because they're going to bring everyone back off like part furlough, whatever it was, in January. And he's doing $6-7 grand a month now as a digital marketing agency. And I've seen a lot of people pop up like that. And you know, like you say, I think what COVID has probably done is accelerate what was going to happen naturally anyway. Like you said, there's, you know, people have been more aware of the multiple streams of income. People have been more aware of kind of like that entrepreneurial spirit, which has become much more mainstream, much more popular, much more commonplace these days. And I think furlough and COVID and all that kind of stuff has just accelerated it. One of the podcasts that I've worked on recently, we did a podcast for a massive health tech innovation event called Giant Thinking. Or the event's called Giant Health. They've got 177,000 members of this sort of community, and they've got some of the biggest health brands in the world, you know, who are part of this community. And we did an 8-part episode podcast called Giant Thinking. And one of the guys that we had on was a guy called Ali Parser, Dr. Ali Parser, and he actually owns a company called Babylon Health, which, if you're not in the health space, you've probably never heard of. I definitely hadn't. Sort of sitting there innocently, ignorantly, as this conversation's been recorded. The guy's worth £1.5 billion, and he owns the biggest chain of private hospitals in the United Kingdom. And he turned around and he said, this is going to be a very unpopular comment from someone in the health tech space. He said it on a podcast. He said, I realise we've been recorded. He said, but COVID and you know, COVID-19 virus has been a good thing for society in general. And it's been a good thing for the health tech space. He said, I do not disregard the loss of life. I do not disregard the pain and suffering that it's caused, but we have now expedited the health process by 10, 15 years. He said, if you'd have said 10 years, you know, this time last year, you could do telephony, or you could do a Zoom consultancy as a GP, you'd have been laughed out the door. There'd have been red tape all over it. How are we going to keep the GDPR? How are we going to make sure we protect people's data? Blah, blah, blah. He said the model, when you think about it, the model, when you're poorly, you go and sit in a waiting room for half an hour with a load of other sick people, all passing the sickness around each other, to go and see some geezer or girl for 10 minutes, to then go home, still feeling cack, and you also picked up what else was in the waiting room. It's like, it makes logical sense not to have to do that, but it needed something like this to be the catalyst, so that everyone, the bureaucracy, the bullshit and the red tape is like, it's gone, right? Zoom calls. If someone's ill, get on Zoom with your doctor. And he said, it's expedited health tech by 15, 20 years in 6 months. It's been a good thing ultimately, but
it's the same with sales. I used to cover the whole of the country, the whole of the UK in sales. And I used to sell high-end IT solutions to corporate companies, 10 million plus turnovers, head offices mostly around the UK. And, sometimes I'd go travel 3.5 hours to do a 2-hour meeting to travel 3.5 hours back. You know what I mean? That's like 7 hours of lost time to do a 2-hour meeting. But that's because those corporate companies were in the habit of being used to seeing you in person. And in order for you to do a big deal, 10,000 plus, you'd have to build that trust, because the expectation was you'd have to meet them, shake hands, look in each other's eyes, answer the awkward questions, see how you answer the questions and whether you appease them. Whereas now that doesn't need to happen anymore, because societal expectation has moved on, which means it'll never move back, which means that, because it's now acceptable to Zoom. Why would I travel 7 hours to do a 2-hour Zoom when I could just do a 2-hour Zoom and then do 7 hours of other productive work?
That's exactly it. Like you said, I think the thing that's really changed here is that consumer behaviours have been changed. So this is where, for example, like with the travel industry, for example, not only have you had the earnings of 2020 are gone. You're not going to get them back. Yes, you might have had a bit of subsidy or a bit of fiscal handout to help you sort of survive or whatever. But again, everyone's going, oh, well, the company's got furlough. It's like, hang on a second, they've got furlough for the staff. They've still got rates. They've still got costs. They've still got insurances. They've still got premiums. They've still got rents potentially. Again, my mate James Sinclair, he owns big soft play centres. These are like thousands and thousands of square foot. The rents. One of his landlords is Lakeside the Into Shopping Centre company, which has also gone bust. They still wanted their 50 grand a month or whatever it was, and they didn't. They were in a real bad way, so they didn't care that people didn't have it. They're like, you got to pay your rent, and he's like, well, no trade, we're not. If you need to, you take me to court. I don't care, but that's the way it's going to go. But this year is gone. But unfortunately, for certain industries like the travel sector, for example, because consumer behaviour has changed, are we going to go long haul? Are we going to get on flights again? And don't get me wrong, I think there'll be like this sort of like collective sigh of relief and like, let's just get out of here. Let's go get some sunshine. Let's get onto a beach. Let's go to an all-inclusive and drink some beers and have a good time. But equally, I think a lot of people will be like, oh, actually, the UK is quite nice, isn't it? Oh, Scotland's beautiful. Wales is beautiful. I didn't even know. Oh, I could hop on a boat to Ireland. I could drive around. Why don't I try Cornwall? I think the consumer behaviour has been changed in a way that you can't ever imagine that it would have been. It seems like laughable to have even considered this, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, well, like you said, the world, has never been so divided, if you like, but in a time when it should always be collaborated. But that division has basically meant that the world has never been so divided, but it has never been so joined up as well. That's how the division has gone. Everything's extreme now. So it's half the population has never been more divided than before, because they're the negative people who haven't looked at the benefits of what COVID has done, the online technology, the shrinking of the world, everyone being able to connect with each other and all of that. They're still living in the old traditional way, and all they're seeing is, they're the people who don't want to get beyond COVID and don't want to take any risks and don't want anyone else going out and doing anything and don't want the economy to survive. They'd rather just not have deaths than have any economy left and all that sort of thing. And you had the Black Lives Matter disruption between, divided people, and you had the Trump, divided the US nation and stuff. And so there's a massive divide between certain people, but then there's all these other people that aren't divided, that have never been more connected and collaborating with and sort of connected to the rest of the world. And I'm part of that, thank God. And I've connected with some fantastic people around the world, and those relationships are going to advance collaboration and connection and growth of business and all that sort of thing, in that sector of people who have done well and have reached out and stuff. There's going to be a lot of trade and a lot of benefits, with those people collaborating and traveling around the world. And there's going to be, I reckon, like there was 15 major tech companies that were all dominating the top companies in the world. After this, is going to be like 100, top tech companies that have all grown out of this situation.
Well, look at Zoom. Zoom's a great example. Zoom's gone from wasn't the co-founder was a guy who works at Cisco, and he actually took it to his line manager. I think he's like, "Here's a concept," and they were like, "Nah, don't see it. No one's really going to knock." God, what was the one that everyone used to use? I can't remember what it was
Google Hangouts.
It was Google Hangouts. That's crap.
WebEx or something.
Yeah, WebEx was another one, and there was a really famous Skype, of course, Skype.
Oh yeah,
Skype. For connectivity. Everyone used Skype, and then all of a sudden, Zoom's come out of nowhere, and the guy's worth $18 billion a few years later, and what's it done for him? But yeah, I think, and to your point, with people being more segregated or more inclusive than ever before, I think the other thing that this situation has done is really make you understand what's actually important. Now, obviously, everyone's like, oh, well, health is wealth, and we kind of understand that on a conceptual level. But when you're like, I can't hug my wife's gran, who's 97, in case I kill her, it really puts stuff in perspective. Like our family, for example, are all getting together at Christmas because we've got this, the 3 house bubble. Well, we've all gone back in, we've all in London today gone into tier 3. So whether they're going to actually, I don't know, a lot of the conspiracy theorists are like, oh, Boris Johnson's not going to let you see your family at Christmas.
They won't pull it because that would be the end of people applying to the rules. They've
martial law.
They don't now anyway, but they got rid of those 5 days after publicising so much. So the politicians would rather see numbers go up and deaths happen than the end of their political careers. So they won't back on the 5 days. They'll just lock down for however long after those 5 days. Because you don't mess with Christmas, but they know after Christmas, there won't be so much fuss. So I'm guessing there's going to be a tight lockdown for quite a long time after Christmas.
Yeah, I think it's going to be 6-8 weeks of like, don't go out, like France style, don't go out of the house unless you're going for your 1 hour a day of allocated government cardio, or going to a shop with a certificate to say you're allowed to go to a shop because you've not been that week. But I think, even, for our family, for example, where everyone's sort of isolating, because we've got a few sort of people at high risk. So everyone's like isolated for 10 days before they'll meet up, and everyone's doing it. Everyone's taking it serious, if that makes sense. And who would have thought that the thing you want for Christmas is to hug your family? Who would have thought that would be the thing you actually want to do? Like, I miss hugging my mates when I see them. And like, I've just had my best mates in the world have just moved back from San Francisco. They emigrated there for 5 years because one of my mates got a very successful career, and he had to go to Silicon Valley, that kind of neck of the woods, because it's in the tech space. And they've adopted 3 children while they've been over there. They've come back to the UK. Can't see them. Can't go and hug them, to go meet their children, go see their children, see our friends after half a decade away. It's so weird. I'm ready for it to be done now. I've got to say, I'm ready for it to be over.
Brilliant. Well, usually I have some questions to ask people, but often the first question leads into a conversation. Didn't even get a question out today, it just led into a conversation, which I'm always happy. I'm a go with the flow kind of guy. I just wanted, for the benefit of my audience really, and the listeners, etc. Tell us a little bit more about your podcast and your business and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I run a company called the Ultimate Podcast Group, and I started it this year during the pandemic. So as I say, I was this time last year, I just stepped away from a very successful 7-figure coaching business that I ran with 2 other sort of co-founders. financially did very well, but I wasn't sort of comfortable with the direction the company was going in. So I was like, well, do you know what? I'm going to vote with my feet. And I got out of there. So I left this 7-figure coaching business and 6-figure branding agency. I was like, see you later. I'm out of here. And the accountant was like, you're going to walk away with nothing here. And I was like, I don't care. I just want to be got. You got to, when you get to that point, you're just like, I just need to get gone. That's more valuable than the cash. So I walked away from that. And then I went and did this, some stuff with James Sinclair I mentioned a couple of times already at the beginning part of this year. Then lockdown happened, obviously, and I was like, look, I love what we're doing here. I love what we're trying to build. We built this online training platform and mentorship site, but predominantly that was going to be a face-to-face, business-to-business coaching company. And obviously we knew we couldn't do that for a little while. And the second furlough check fell through the door. And I was like, I'm very grateful to Rishi Sunak. Big up Rishi Sunak. I think he's done a largely a very good job handling this whole, shit show. But I was like, that doesn't even cover, 1/10. Well, it doesn't even cover half the rent. So I'm going to have to do something else. So I had been podcasting since 2017 anyway myself. And I've helped clients release 129 podcasts, and 85 to 90% of the podcasts I release end up in the iTunes top chart. So I'm actually Europe's leading podcast launch expert, but I didn't have an agency offering just because I'd always been busy doing other stuff. I've been busy running this coaching business this time last year. We did, the year before, 2018, we put on something like 70, 80 events, something like that. It was mega, mega busy. Traveled to South Africa a few times, went to Australia, went to America, just busy, running this business. And I always used to get people saying to me, I love the idea of doing a podcast, but could you just do it for me? Because it seems like a lot of work. I don't quite know how to do it. And I was always just too busy. It sounds daft, but I was just too busy. And I just farmed them out. Go and speak to someone over here. Go speak to this person over there. And I realized two things. Number one, I was giving away cash every time I did that. And number two, and more importantly for me, was every time I was risking my reputation. So I got this reputation as being the Europe's leading podcast expert on how to launch these successful podcasts. Then I just send people off to another agency to go and get their podcast done. So like, why don't I do this properly? So I did. So I launched it. I incorporated the company on the 4th of June, and we've already done, dozens of launches this year. I've done loads of trainings. I've done, dozens and dozens of podcast appearances, across my sort of podcast career, done thousands of episodes, millions of downloads, helped create a number of very successful brands off the back of podcasts. And I've worked with everyone from coaches, experts, mentors, actors. I helped the Military Wives film launch their podcast earlier this year. I've even helped a Mount Everest explorer who was literally climbing up Mount Everest release a podcast. He used to send me WhatsApp voice notes as he was climbing, which was mental. Such a cool project. So that's me in a nutshell, really. And lockdown and COVID was the catalyst to me actually doing the thing I should have been doing a little while before. So my only regret with it is that I didn't, get it up and running a lot sooner, really.
Yeah, I got the same regret I have, because I've been blogging for 15 years and I much more prefer to talk than type.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I didn't find podcasting earlier, but I started my podcast in March, and I started doing dual chats in June via Zoom. Yeah. So I'm quite new on my journey, but I've been blogging for 15 years, which means I have a content marketing strategy, etc. Because I used to be a corporate sales director, so I have a lot of content. I'm a lifelong learner, and I retain information very well, and I like helping other people, so I share that information. So so my podcast is, like I said, 820 odd episodes. 600 of those are me talking to, the listeners on my own, and then 200 to 250 odd dual chats. I call them entrepreneur chats, where I video them as well as audio them and stick them on my podcast and put them on my YouTube channel.
That's some going, that is. That's some going. Since, what did you say it was, March this year? You've done 800 episodes.
At the end of March, I started my podcast, and it was...
so we're putting out 3 a day.
I was doing, at some point, I was doing up to 8. I was doing up to 8 episodes a day.
What, putting them all out on the same day?
Yeah, but some of the episodes are only like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half hour, that sort of thing.
10 minutes times 8 is still 80 minutes of content. It's still quite a lot.
But so I decided to set myself a goal of doing more episodes in my first year than anyone else has ever done.
You
I don't know what that
well,
number is. I don't know what that number is, but I'm just, I like to do things a little bit different than other people. I'm a bit mental. Um, and I just thought, well, I tried to look to see what the record is. I can't find it. I just thought, well, just do as many as you can.
if in doubt, do as many as you can. Well, I can't see many that would have done more than 800/900 by the time you hit the end of the year. And you still obviously got till March, haven't you? To be fair,
I'm looking to, I set a sort of goal in my head to do at least 1,000, but try and do 1,500.
Well, yeah, I can't see that you wouldn't hit that. Bloody hell.
So yeah, I want to try and, because I want to become a global speaker. And when you want to be a global speaker, you've got to have done something that other people haven't done in order for people to want to listen to you.
Is that yours there?
Yeah, that's my podcast.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I'm just trying to do something a little bit different,
That's definitely a bit different. That definitely is a bit different. I'm just scrolling. The Wolf of Wales. Bloody hell. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got different features I have. So again, I used to manage like up to 50 blogs. So I'm used to writing content. I'm used to repurposing content. I'm a sales and marketing professional. So, I've got clients that I can talk about, and I'm part of a large global network and events company. I do a lot of networking. I'm an award-winning networker, so I'm good at building relationships and getting guests on my podcast. So I've got all the skills I need. So I got features like King of Marketing, which is where I give people advice and tips on marketing. I got Wolf of Wales, which is sales. I got Networker 2018, which is a hashtag I use since I've become an award-winning networker. I talk about networking tips and advice. I've got the Networking Grapevine, where I talk about the events that I'm going to this week. I've got like
So do you call yourself the Wolf of Wales? Yeah. I love that. Absolutely brilliant.
So I'm also the voice of social media. So I've got the voice of social media. I've got I do the A to Z of things like leadership, entrepreneurship. I talk about personal development. I do a daily morning motivation. Every day I do like a motivational episode.
I've never heard anything like it in my bloody life, man. I'm just trying to find your latest episode. Because I'd never catch up now, would I? 800 in. Jesus Christ, that is some going. Good on you, mate.
I'm looking to start. I've actually created 2 other podcasts, which I haven't put the episodes into yet, but I'm going to do 2 other podcasts. One's called Entrepreneur Chats. So it's basically the 200 chats that I've got interspersed with my 800 episodes, just put into one separate podcast. People, yeah. And also I've got Wolf of Wales, which I think will be a good niche sales podcast. So rather than having like a full-on entrepreneur podcast like my one is now, I want to just put all my Wolf of Wales episodes into a sales podcast. Yeah? And then I've got another plan next year. I used to blog about Welsh sport because I'm a business and sports fan. I'm massively into business and sport. And I like Welsh sport. I'm quite patriotic Welsh, as you can see in the background.
Yeah, you're no kidding.
So I'm thinking about starting a Welsh sports podcast as well.
Okay. Good on you. Good on you. Let's hope you got the time to do it all. I respect the hustle, man.
Yeah, well, I work from when I wake up to when I go to sleep every day. So, but if you could call it work, I don't call it work. Like having a chat with people like this now, it's like socializing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the stuff I do for a living is what people do when they come home from work when they're watching the telly. They do Facebook posts, they do Twitter posts, they do a TikTok. They do update their LinkedIn. All the stuff that's how I see it. Is I'm doing all the stuff that other people do when they're relaxing. And when they're home from work chilling, that's what I do for a living. So, I used to love meeting up. I love meeting people and getting to know them and getting to see how I can help them. I love helping people too. And, to me, like going out and meeting someone and having a coffee in a coffee shop, that wasn't work. That's just like socializing. Especially because I wouldn't tend to go to a coffee house and have a coffee. I don't drink coffee. I only drink tea. But I tend to meet up in a pub and have a cider. That's not work. And it's socializing.
Definitely is. If you bring the pub involved, and that's definitely socializing, not work.
Yeah, but also as well, it's how you see things, so, it's the stories we tell ourselves. If we tell ourselves that every meeting is work, then when we go out and we do 6 meetings, we think, oh, that was a hard day's work. When I go out and do 6 meetings, I think, oh, that was a great day of socialising.
Yeah, it's so true. I've listened to not listened. I've been reading a book recently called The Greatest Secret, and it's actually by Rhonda Byrne, who wrote the original book, The Secret. The Secret, I could kind of get on board with it. I kind of couldn't, because the law of attraction, I like it as a concept, but then I saw loads of people who are like, oh, just putting post-it notes around their bathroom mirror going, I'm a millionaire. It's like, well, you're not a millionaire because you're getting your lazy ass out of bed at 11
This is a lot of it. It needs a part 2, yeah? The law of attraction is about visualizing stuff. It's about getting your brain ready, right, to work on the things it wants to achieve. That needs part 1.
Yeah. So this book, the Greatest Secret
I'll tell you my secret, and then you can tell me yours, right? You can finish what you were saying. Sorry to interrupt, but just I want to see if it's the same thing as what he says, because my conceptual idea of The Secret and what I've listened to other entrepreneurs after that is, it's all right visualizing stuff again, you start prepared for it, but at some point you've got to take massive action. You've got to go and do stuff in order to make it happen. So you've got to visualize it first, but then do stuff second. That's how I see The Secret, which a lot of people don't get the second part to that. So they just see the benefits. I think they can manifest things into their life. You need to visualize it, then take action towards it. So carry on with what you were saying now. See, is that what you've read, or is that what that book's about, or is it?
Yeah. So The Greatest Secret is literally about the power of your awareness. Because to your point, when you think about something, whether it's good or bad, or whether it's a hard day at work or a good day of socializing, you're doing the same thing. So it's all about the frame that you put on it. And it sort of talks, and it's again, because I didn't buy wholeheartedly into that law of attraction. I'm very similar to you. I'm like, I don't believe in the law of attraction, but I massively believe in the law of action. But you've got to take action in the right areas, because else you can find yourself being a busy fool just for the sake of it, if that makes sense. But this second book, where it's talking about like awareness, really breaks it down and actually made me look at stuff in a completely different way. There's one bit where it talks about the everything other than this very, very nanosecond is just made up in your head. The past is made up in your head. The future is made up in your head. The only thing you need to be present for is right now, and be aware of that as much as possible. So like last week, for whatever reason, I'm normally mega driven, mega focused. You can't flat me. I've got a bit of a spiky temper at times. I can get a little bit aggy for over the small stuff. I do sweat the small stuff. I'd like to say that I don't, but that would be a lie. But I'm I would just, if I got a problem, I would just outwork it. Just get up earlier or work late or whatever. Last week, for whatever reason, I just was flip flopping. I did not know what I was supposed to be doing every day. I had this online training platform that I've been working on for months. I'm going to get that out this week. No, I'm not going to build a community for it. No,
it was overwhelmed. It was overwhelming. Every entrepreneur gets overwhelmed at some point. And how old are you? How old are you?
37.
Okay, well, when I discovered my personal development journey, I was 37. I'm 43 now, right? The last 6 years, I've been a lifelong learner, but I learned more in the last 6 years than I've ever learned in the rest of my life combined, right? Yeah. That's because I entered the world of personal development, right? Something I discovered this year at 43 is, like you hear all Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and all that meditate, yeah? That's because when you're doing big things and you're really doing something that you're really chasing your passion, and you get hyper excited about it sometimes when you're doing stuff towards it, when you've got decisions to make, you can get to a point where it's just overwhelmed, yeah? And actually, I discovered meditation this year, yeah? Okay. And before that, I used to do mindfulness. So I just go out for a ride on my bike or whatever, and just go out or go for a walk, and just let your head collect its thoughts before making a decision. But I've discovered meditation, and literally, like when your laptop is open and you've got all your tabs open and everything, and then all of a sudden you're trying to do something and it's whirling around different things, and it can't work out what to do. Yeah, that's the sort of mind version of that. And all you've got to do with the laptop is turn it off and put it back on again, and all the programs kick back into synchronicity again. Yeah. And that's what meditation does.
So are you on it every day?
No, I don't use it every day. I've actually created a happiness formula during lockdown, which is called the SMART Happiness Formula, which stands for sleep, meditation, ability to perform, and acts of kindness, targets. And I basically believe, and it's sort of biological fact, if you follow my daily routine, you can become more happier in life. Yeah, that's because if you sleep properly, it's proven to make you feel happier. Yeah, and if you have less sleep, it'll make you feel miserable. Yeah, if you do meditation and mindfulness, it allows you to collect your thoughts, which allows you to feel happier, and it allows the happiness hormones and stuff to get around you better. You know, if you look after your ability to perform, which is exercise 30 minutes a day, get plenty of hydration on board, and a balanced nutritional diet without all of the crap. They don't get rid of all the crap, the salts, the sugars, the white flours, etc. Yeah. Do lots of random acts of kindness for at least one a day, and set yourself targets, daily targets, and achieve them regularly. Yeah, all of those things produce hormones to make you happier. Yeah, so I've actually got a daily formula of how to become happy. But I'm following my passion every day and ticking great tasks off every day in order to achieve the big goal that I've got. So I don't need a daily formula to make me happy, because I'm happy anyway, because I'm chasing my life ambition and my life goals, and I'm getting stuff done every day. But so I don't need to follow my own happiness formula, but I follow most of it most days. Yeah. But if I'm feeling down and I want to boost, I'll follow the formula and give it a boost again. Yeah. So I don't meditate all the time. I use it when I feel overwhelmed or when I need to switch off or whatever. So that is something which I would recommend. If it's not something you've tried, not something I tried till I was 43, but I would swear by it. But
Yeah, it's a really weird one, because I got into it a few years ago, and I remember I used to use an app called Headspace, and it like tracks your daily usage and all that kind of stuff. And it's very, very clever, because it's very they've sort of gamified mindset of meditation. Because a couple of years ago, meditation is everywhere now, isn't it? It's like bloody podcasting. Everyone's doing a podcast, everyone's doing meditation, but if you'd have said it 10 years ago, people would have been like, what are you talking about? What, Mike, the guy likes, Welsh sports and rugby, he's doing meditating. All right, chill out. What's he on? What's he smoking?
I wouldn't have admitted I did it 10 years ago, but actually...
Not exactly that.
Yeah, but actually, it's just one of those things, like lots of things. I've often believed it. Well, I know going for a walk and going out in nature and that is the same sort of thing. And I'm not someone who likes to follow rules. Like, like when they give you recipes or ingredients or whatever, I like to maybe have the ingredients, but stick a couple of my own ingredients in and mix it up in my own ratios, if you like. So I think, and that's important, I think, as well. When people give me hard and fast rules, I'm like, no, how can I adapt them to suit me? Yeah. And that's like, I've got some formulas, but they're there to be quite loose. I'm not telling people what they should eat and what they shouldn't eat in a well-balanced nutritional diet. I'm just saying they should have one, because it will make them happier. Yeah. And actually being healthy is part of happiness as well. So it's about, it's about, these are the things you should do, but find your own way to do it that works for you, because we're all different and we're all unique. Yeah. But and that's what that's what my formula is sort of about. It's like a guide to happiness, but you've got to put the detail in, because everyone's different. But a friend of mine switched me on to meditation. Someone I met networking, and the first time I did a proper meditation session was in the middle of the afternoon, and I got zonked out, and I woke up, I don't know how long later, and I got zonked out, and I woke up like an hour or two later, and it was the first time I think I can ever remember for such a long time. I felt like I woke up without anything on my mind.
Yeah, it works, doesn't it? With the Headspace app, I remember there's one point I did 30 days on the bounce, and I was doing like the 15, 20-minute meditations. I clocked up, a couple of 100 hours doing it. It's really bizarre though, isn't it? In life, sometimes I felt a lot better. I say better, I was a lot calmer. I was much less reactive to stuff. I was a lot less, highly strung. But then because it had worked, then I didn't feel like I needed it. And then because I didn't feel like I needed it, I didn't do it. And then you feel like you need it again. It's like, it's almost a bit counterintuitive because you sort of, like, to your point, you know, you sort of do it, use it when you need it. But actually, if you do it consistently, you'll never need it because you'll always be topping yourself up, sort of thing. I guess it's priorities.
But just if you sort of start building up an association that at least when you start feeling like you need it, you use it, and that's better than not doing it at all. And that's sort of how I use it. I don't get flustered because I've been in high pressurized sales environments, and I've told newspaper, radio advertising, working to copy deadline and all that sort of thing, and multiple deadlines in a week and all that. So I don't get that confused or bamboozled, or people call it discombobulated, wherever. I don't get that often. But if you're doing big things and you go, you know, so much different deadlines and stuff, it can get to that point where you don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Because you need to do them all, and you can't, you know, work out which was most important at that time. Take yourself a bit of meditation. You'll get back into the swing of it, and all of a sudden you'll realise which is the order of the things you need to do. You know, and that sort of thing, really. So yeah, it's been great having you on my podcast. I would have carried on talking for the rest of the evening, but I got someone waiting in my waiting room to come on again next one. This is how I can get a lot of episodes done, because I do them back to back when I'm doing it.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, yeah, you know, there have been some days in the summer when I was doing like 5, 6, 7, 8 back to back, like, you know.
That's full on, that is. Well, good on you. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it. Good to chat, good to connect. And if anyone wants to find out more information, they can go to ultimatepodcastgroup.com, and there's all the stuff about the agency and what we're doing for podcasters and the celebrity joint ventures we're doing and all that kind of good stuff over there.
Yeah, well, start tagging me in on social media, etc., and I'll start sharing your stuff. I've actually got a Facebook group called Global Podcasters, so I can share some of your content in there and that.
Oh, cool.
And I'm all about collaboration, working together. I know loads of podcasters, you know, and I know loads of coaches and speakers and all of that. I also I'm a sales and marketing director at Intrabiz, which is a global networking and events company. And we've always got like global seminars where we're looking for speakers and that sort of thing. So, you know, there's probably stuff I can, you know, provide you that can benefit some of the people you're working with, and vice versa. So the more we get to sort of know what each other does and how we do it, the more we might be able to see other opportunities of collaborating or working together on something.
100%. I'll leave you to your next interview. Thanks for having me on.
Brilliant. Thanks for coming on, and
nice one.
You know, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Cheers, pal. Take care, Mike. Thanks.
All the best.
All the best.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.